My parents went on vacation. They wanted me to stay with my aunt or grandmother, but I refused. They still saw me as a child, but I was already 13. Through arguments and discussions, I ended up staying alone for the whole week. The first night was fine. Although I kept tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep, it felt like someone was tickling me and touching my back and hands. Towards morning, I heard noises in the kitchen, but I dismissed it as my inability to sleep and having hallucinations, although it was terrifying. The entire following day felt unpleasant, as if someone was watching me. At night, I heard footsteps. Something crawled out of the pantry and walked with shuffling steps into the kitchen. There, it opened the fridge and dropped something. Then it went into the bathroom, turned on the water. Apparently, this something wanted to take a bath. It went into the bathroom, climbed into the tub. Then it dropped something, probably shampoo. Then it drained the water and turned on the shower. And it started singing. People often sing in the shower, but I didn't expect that thing to sing too. It sang hoarsely, bass-like, and unpleasantly. Then I heard the brushing of teeth with a toothbrush. Then something screamed, as if in pain. And then I didn't remember anything. In the morning, I found that the fridge was open, and apples had spilled out. In the bathroom, I found my dad's toothbrush lying in the sink, bloodied, and 2 green teeth nearby. Then I called my friend and told her everything. She didn't believe me and said she would stay over. At night, she couldn't stand it and screamed. Something turned on the TV in the living room and started chewing something, munching. She jumped up and tried to open the door, but it was as if immovable. Then I blacked out again. In the morning, my friend was not at home, and the house seemed like it had been through an earthquake. I found a note on the table. "Gone for a walk with your friend, don't miss us." I descended into the subway. It was around 11 o'clock. As usual, there was a lot of work at the office on Fridays, so I was returning home late. Exhausted, I entered the last train car. Paying no attention to anyone, I sat in an empty seat, turned my headphones up almost to full volume, and closed my eyes. Fortunately, I was traveling along one line, albeit all the way to the end. Apparently, I dozed off and woke up to silence. You know, when the train stops, there is suddenly such an unusual silence in the car. I opened my eyes and looked around. Darn, I thought, am I being taken to the depot? There was only me in the car, but then I glanced into another car and relaxed. There was a group of people chatting cheerfully. The train picked up its usual speed, and I finally calmed down. But then one song ended, followed by another. I knew we had a long stretch between stations on the line, but it was only supposed to be 2 minutes. Both songs lasted for at least 3, and the train kept going at the same speed. I walked up to the window between the cars and looked at the group from the front car, but they seemed calm. Something about them struck me as strange. There were 3 of them, 2 girls and a guy. One of the girls had her back to me, facing the others. Suddenly, I realized what had unsettled me. This girl, sitting with her back to me, was moving her hand too rhythmically. Every 15 seconds, she would raise and lower her hand, as if explaining something, and then repeat the motion like a clock. Then I noticed the same pattern with the guy. He was nodding his head at the same intervals. I knocked on the window, but they continued their actions as if on autopilot, repeating the same motions at regular intervals. I like trains. A voice came from behind. A chill ran down my spine as I forced myself to turn around. A boy, about 6 years old, stood near one of the doors, staring out the window. "Who are you?" I barely managed to ask, absolutely certain that there had been no one in the car a minute ago. "Alex," he solemnly introduced himself, looking at me with green eyes. Then he turned back to the window, gazing at it with fascination. "Why are you alone? Where are your parents?" I asked. "My parents left without me," he sighed. "My mom was crying, but they couldn't take me with them. Probably because I died," he sighed again. Before I could process what he had said, the boy continued, "The next station is coming up, but I'll keep riding." I really loved riding the subway and the train to my grandma's. Suddenly, I woke up, sitting in a crowded subway car. I stood up, giving my seat to a lady, and spent the rest of the journey home standing, scrutinizing the people around me. When I got home, I poured myself some hot tea and went online. I spent a good hour searching for the station's name, the stretch between stations, nearby stations, until I finally found a mention in one of the news feeds about a boy's death right in the subway train, on the stretch between stations. And there was a photo of the boy on the side of the article. Yes, Alex was looking at me from the monitor screen. Since then, I can't fall asleep in the subway, and every time I pass through that stretch between those stations, I always remember the boy with the green eyes who loved riding trains. The village where I used to spend my summers never seemed like a scary place to me, even though it had its fair share of atmospheric spots. There was an abandoned textile factory where children often got lost and animal corpses were found. There was a half-dried pond where we once found a strange kitten that eventually drowned. There was a cottage whose construction was mysteriously halted, rumored to be due to a series of accidents. And there were strange dogs that had a habit of attacking their owners. Despite all this, the village was something good, fun, and summery for me. I used to spend all my vacations there. But there was one place that always scared me. Our village is divided into two ends. We lived right in the middle, and all my friends were on the right end. There was a small stretch of road there that was always deserted, with strange but not uninhabited houses. Thinking about it now, I realize I don't remember who lived there at all. And the village is small, everyone knows each other. But here's the paradox: I didn't know these people, even though I was a very sociable kid. So I always rushed through this section, especially the small pond there, which had long turned into a kind of swamp. Often I would return from walks quite late and tried to avoid that section as much as possible by taking the highway, or at least not walking alone after midnight. But it was impossible to avoid it forever. One time, having stayed out late, I was walking briskly past that pond. Not a single streetlight was on. When I left my friend's house, it was 2 o'clock, so it must have been around 15 minutes past 2. And then I understood the meaning of hair standing on end. From the direction of the pond, in the quiet of the night, came a deeply unpleasant slapping sound, as if a very wet sponge was being squished against glass. By the law of meanness, your body gets paralyzed in such moments, so I stared in fear at the strange figure of some creature crawling out of the swamp. Unfortunately or fortunately, it was too dark to make out anything clearly. I only remember that the creature was slightly larger than a dog, made strange slurping noises, and was extremely slow. Coming out of my stupor, I ran so fast that I probably covered the distance to home in 2 minutes. Usually it takes about 10. I don't know what it was. I prefer to comfort myself with the thought that it was some sick domestic animal. Never mind that apart from chickens and dogs, no one in the village ever kept any livestock. At least not at that time. I tried to avoid that place afterwards and haven't been back there for a long time. City life has swallowed me whole.